Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Tuesday. It's time for another episode of LonsTV. So earlier today, I had to go. I got my car. I got a new car, and it was delivered. So I had to send the company that sold me the car a bunch of information, just fax it over to them, including a photocopy of my driver's license. So I went up the street to this copy store that's called Copycat, and I go and I do all my consulting paperwork because I don't own any of those machines. All the time when you're consulting, it's like, oh yeah, just sign that and then scan it in and shoot me a PDF. And it's like, yeah, I don't do office work out of my house that much, like where I need a scan or so. I always have to go to Copycat up the street. So I went, and as I'm walking in, and I've never had to do this before, like fax a copy of my driver's license. So I go up to the counter and go, kind of a weird request. Here's what I want. Can you take a photocopy of my driver's license and then fax it over to this number? And I had it written down on a card. And this woman sitting next to me, and I say woman because she was in her late 20s, early 30s. It was not like a teenager. She just like rolls her eyes and looks at me like, that is so odd. Like she did like this Aubrey Plaza, like sitcom, you know, snarky, jaded teen response to what I said. Like, I was like I was being sassed. Like, and you know, if she was 17 years old and was just like, oh, dude, what a dork. Fair enough. Like, adolescence, you know, I'm fine with that. But like, if you're like 30 years old, you're too old to be like picking a fight with a stranger. Like, yeah, maybe it wasn't that odd of a request, and I was just trying to like say something while I explained to the guy what I wanted. So I wasn't just walking in off the street and just making demands and being like, you there, you know? Like I tried to make it conversational, but it was so weird. It took me aback because it's like there's people being friendly, and then there's people being like really rude, like shoving you out of the way or cutting in line or something, and then there's just like people being just oddly like hostile for no reason. Like, I'm just gonna like start something with this random person, and it's seriously like it felt like being in a sitcom for a moment. Like, was I supposed to come up with like a witty rejoinder back, and we were gonna have a little banter session there, and it was very strange. Anyway, the main thing I want to talk about, we're doing this segment on This Week in Movies called This Week in Netflix, and every week I'm gonna watch a streaming movie on Netflix and sort of recommend it to the audience. But that kind of implies, if I'm recommending a movie, that kind of implies like I've watched a bunch and like here's my recommendation, and I'm trying to watch new things that I haven't seen as much before, which I guess is making it too hard. Like, I just look through Netflix for things that I know I like and review them, rather than every week trying to like find something that I like. But anyway, that's what I decided to do. So I'm watching a bunch of movies, waiting for something waiting to see something I haven't seen before that I also think like, oh, that's great, so I can then recommend it. And I'm seeing, you know, the movies I've been watching are not terrible. I just don't feel like I want to put the weight of my recommendation behind them necessarily. So I'm going to talk about them here on my YouTube show, so I don't have to like be like, this has the Lon stamp of recommendation on it necessarily. The first one is called Man Push Cart. It's from 2005. It went to a bunch of festivals. It did well at a couple of the festivals. I remember hearing about it back then, but I never got to see it, and I discovered it is on Netflix, so I watched it the other night. It is about a guy named Ahmad from Pakistan, and he works in a breakfast cart in Manhattan. If you're not familiar, there's just like these sort of portable stands on the street, and you get coffee and tea and bagels and donuts and just like that kind of, you know, morning food, like while you're, you know, doing your commute to work. So the movie moves very slowly, intentionally. Like the whole first half hour is really just getting into like this guy's routine and sort of what a surprising pain in the ass it is to run, because it looks like it's not that bad of a job, but it's really not. But then you get all these scenes of like him having to drag the cart up the hill to where he parks it all day and then back, and you know, that's why it's called a push cart, but also man push cart. Like, that's what he's doing for a lot of the movie, is moving in. He's got to like weave between traffic. It's really awkward. And so, you know, that stuff is relatively well done. Like, it's really shot well and it's handled well. And at first I was genuinely intrigued by where this is going. And the plot is, you know, eventually, like, very slowly you watch him at work and just his sort of interactions, and you get to know more and more and more about him. And it turns out he has this whole sort of involved tragic backstory that eventually is uncovered. And it wasn't bad, it wasn't poorly done, it was sort of interesting, but it just, there wasn't enough meat there. Like, it was moving too slowly. If it had moved like 1/3 faster and had a little bit more going on, I think I probably would have been more into it than I was. You know, even as I admire the technique and sort of what they were trying to do, and you really do kind of get into this guy's head after a while, just following him along on his sort of daily routine, which is interesting. The one other thing, the main guy who's playing Ahmed is great. Some of the other actors, it's a little like on the nose, like they're a little bit of that sort of stilted quality where it's a little rehearsed. So, and that's one of the things you get with a sort of film of this scale that was made, obviously, no known celebrities are in it. And it's supposed to be sort of natural and everyday, but at the same time, some of the performances kind of bug me. So I didn't want to give it, like, the full recommendation, but it's kind of interesting. The next one that I watched is a great movie, and I'm not trying to knock it. It's called The Snake Pit. It's from 1948. Anatole Litvak, or Litvak, I don't know how to pronounce it. I've seen a bunch of his movies, but he's not one of those names I've never heard pronounced out loud. Anyway, it's it's sort of regarded as a classic. Olivia de Havilland stars in a very sort of well-regarded performance as she's a woman who's in a mental asylum, and at the beginning of the movie, she doesn't even sort of really realize she's in a mental asylum at first, and she has no memory, she doesn't know how she got there, or she doesn't recognize her fiance, and you're just sort of staying with her as she kind of has these highs and lows. So at times she'll remember, things, and she'll sort of reminisce a little bit about her life, and we sort of go back in flashback and find out she was sort of this mysterious woman who this guy met, and they sort of fell in love, and they were going to get married, and she would never talk a lot about her background, and then she sort of had this like nervous breakdown, psychotic moment, and the rest of the movie is just the therapist at this mental asylum, and then the boyfriend, the husband, trying to figure out, how she got a case of the crazies. The thing about movies like this, and I mean, they make it like a mystery, like she's terrified of the date May the 12th, which they set up early, and then it's like, obviously that's going to have a payoff later. So, they do their best to sort of make a movie about mental illness into something that's really watchable and moves forward. I'm sure that's what people at the time liked about it. It's just tough to watch old Hollywood films about psychotherapy and psychology, because this was, 48, it was like Freud was everything, and it's very outdated now, a lot of their ideas, and it's always this very obvious, like, every problem somebody has when they're crazy relates directly back to, like, something that happened, and once you figure that out and solve the mystery, like, boom, they're better. And Hitchcock made a couple of movies like this. Spellbound is one. Marnie is another, where it just feels too easy. Like, it's all just like unlocking the secret, that one little thing, the detail in their past that makes all their crazy make sense. And of course, now we sort of recognize, and mental illness is a lot more sort of talked about, and there's a lot more realistic depictions of mental illness in media now, so that you go back and you see something like this, where I guess she's supposed to be schizophrenic, but it's really just more like she just has crazy mood swings and is super paranoid, and like will be like in a blinding rage reaching for a knife to kill somebody, and then like go all sweet and innocent and childlike another minute, and that was really their understanding of like, that's crazy, So it's dated. It's not that it's poorly done. It's actually really well shot, and Olivia de Havilland, it's that very old-fashioned movie acting of where it's like, it's a little big, but but interesting and fun to watch. It's certainly very compelling. It's just dated, and I didn't want to be like, you should all watch The Snake Pit and have people like, this is the most ridiculous version of being crazy I've ever seen. So anyway, that is LonsTV for the day. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, even though this one was a little spazzy and all over the place, I know. And I will be back tomorrow with another episode, and hey, it's Web Series Wednesday, so I will see you then.